Hey folks, it's Travis with the Homestead, and wanted to talk today about food preps, and mostly prepping for others when it comes to your food preps. Just the camera just a little bit. It was a discussion that my wife and I was having a few nights ago. We had we don't celebrate Halloween, and we've kind of started a little tradition here that in the fall we usually have a little fun day for the kids. I set up a scavenger hunt. My wife makes treats for them, you know, that kind of thing. Just do some fun stuff for the day. And they had a bunch of friends over. Two other families of kids came over. So the house was, this was Sunday. Yes, this past Sunday. So the house was just full of kids running around in the house, outside. It was crazy. I'm getting too old for that kind of stuff, but it was fun. I always have lots of fun picking on them, causing problems. That's my expertise. Anyways, afterwards, they well, they weren't in bed yet, but they were quieting down and stuff, and we were sitting and talking, and of course my crazy mind, I was like, so all this having children over here makes you wonder, or makes you think, like, what if the end of the world as we know it happened and we're stuck with all these kids? Wow. You know. Or, and then as the conversation progressed, and I've heard other people on other websites and YouTube videos, and it's kind of one of the ongoing discussions amongst people that prepare for especially an end of the world kind of situation or societal collapse. When you're building up your preps, do you add more to it to prep for others? You know, if your neighbor, after everything collapses and people are starting to starve, and your neighbor shows up, you know, do you let him come in and his family, or your cousin that for the last 20 years has made fun of you and joked that, you know, you're some nutty prepper, doomsday prepper, and then it all really happens and he shows up at your house with his 4 kids? What do? You know, do you just turn those people away? Do you take them in under certain conditions? You know, what do you do? Because you have to remember, it's, you know, you got to think of your own family also. But what about children? I think it's plausible that in an end of the world as we know it, or societal collapse, that there could definitely be lost, dumped, and orphaned children. I know the dumped children, people are like, man, there's no way. There's people that do it today, that, you know, dump their kids off, get rid of them. And then I think the orphaned children would definitely be a possibility. The parents, for whatever reason, ended up getting killed or dying, and the children are left. So, you know, what do? You find them, they come, you know, walking up to your property or whatever, and there's these children. And I think, you know, something I never really thought about too much before, but I think it's definitely a possibility under certain circumstances of, you know, a collapse of our society, that situation could happen. And I guess to take this off on a little religious run here, you know, my faith teaches me that we're not to turn those little children away, that it's better for a man to tie a big rock around his neck and toss it in the river than to turn a child away. And so I don't believe that we should do that. And then my wife started, you know, getting in on the conversation, and she's like, you know, why don't we take whatever our budget is for the month, and we do have a food prep budget. We have a food prep budget, and then we have a everything else budget, prep budget. Take our food prep budget and add 10% to that, and, you know, take that 10% extra and set that aside for, you know, children, people, families, whatever, that might show up here. You know, there's definitely things to think about of, you know, do you want to have what kind of rules that you'd want to have, you know, what situation would you take them in, that sort of thing, but I'm not going to go into that. But I liked that idea from her. Is just, if your prep food budget is $100 a month, add $10 to it. If it's $50 a month, add $5 to it. That sort of thing. And take that extra and start putting it away for that. There's also something to think about. The Bible says that whatever you do to the least of these, you do also unto me. And so that's something to think about if you're of the religious type of person. And she said, and she even said this was her idea, I've got to give her the credit. She said, it could be kind of like tithing. Now, stop you right there. I'm not saying that, if you tithe, that you take your tithe and go buy food prep. That's not what she was saying, and that's not what I'm saying. What we're saying, it would almost be like we could look at it as an additional type of tithing. You have your normal tithing that you would do, and then we're going to take 10%, not take it out of, but add 10% to whatever we are purchasing or putting away or whatever for our food, for preparedness, and we're going to add 10% to that, and that's going to be for others, kind of like a charity in a way. And it'll stay here, and it all goes down, and someone shows up, or we see a child that their family didn't make it, their parents didn't make it. What do? There's not going to be any social services to take that child in. I know in my heart I couldn't turn a child away. We were sitting there when we were talking about it, and we were sitting out on the front porch because it was quiet out there, and inside it was still pretty noisy. And I said, just look in those kids, and I'm not talking about our kids, I'm talking about the other kids, and they were all really well-behaved, sweet kids. I just told both their parents or both sets of their parents that, hey, we'd take that one, we'd take your children for you if you ever want us to, take them, because they're just little sweethearts. But anyways, if one of those kids, could you say, sorry, I can't take you in because we have just barely enough food for my own family. If we take you in, and that's something that that's food that my family can't eat. And while you may be able to bring yourself to saying that to an adult, I know personally I couldn't say that to a child. I'd cut back on my food to know that they're taken care of. And I know you could say, well, you could take this all too far and end up having 100 kids on your place and everyone's starving to death. I get that, but so that's kind of our plan. That's something that we started, and I thought it was a really good idea, and I wanted to share it with you. That we're going to add 10%, which isn't much, but over time it will add up. And you also realize if it's a child, children typically their food intake is going to be about half of an adult. Although our 7-year-old girl, I swear she can out-eat me. But anyways, I thought it was a really good idea and wanted to share it. Then, of course, my tactical mind, I'm thinking, yeah, in 5 or 10 years, you got a whole platoon of kids to do things for you after the world ends. But anyways, I thought it was a good idea as a type of, we're looking at it as almost like a tithe, that we're doing something for the least of these. We do other things on a regular basis as we can to help out others, but that's something also that we can do, is put that back, and because I think it would be very likely that people could show up or even seen a child. Usually no matter how isolated you might try to live, there's always going to be people that know that you live like that, and very possibly people know or kind of have a good idea that, I bet that person, they're sitting around, it's 3 weeks after the, balloon pops, and they're like, hey, that family out there in the woods we know and stuff, I bet you those guys are preppers. They act like it, they look like it, they live way out there in the woods and grow their own stuff. I bet they got tons of food. Let's go see if we can work something out with them, because we're starving to death. And I think it might be a good idea to do something like that. Try to figure out a plan for your family that you can, on a regular basis, put food back I would advise, we have a working prep pantry where it's, about a, not all the time, but about a year's pantry. And so it's about a year's worth of food, but it's working, meaning that we use it constantly and we're replenishing it constantly. Maybe those types of items wouldn't be the best to do for this. Maybe it would be the more long-term storage, beans, rice, wheat, oats, things like that you could do. It's possible. But anyways, just something I wanted to bring up. I thought it was a really good idea, and thought maybe some of you out there might think it's a decent idea. And I have to give all the credit to my wife. She, when we were talking about it, she's the one that come up with the adding 10% to our food budget to do that. All right, well, I'm getting close to done with my little walk today, and I will catch you guys later. Thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe if you can. Share the channel. Love hearing the responses from you guys. See you next time.